idling with a low hum. He watched the mist swirl against the windshield. Beside him, Rex, a German shepherd with a lineage of heroes and a heart of gold, let out a soft, rhythmic huff. Rex's ears pricked forward, his amber eyes fixed on the grey void outside. He felt it too. Something was shifting in the city. Charlie checked his watch. 6:45 a.m. The call had come in 10 minutes ago, a possible abduction on Water Street, but in a city built on secrets and stone. Possible usually meant inevitable. Part 1. The Silent Witness. Chapter 1. The Echo of a Scream. Water Street was eerily quiet when Charlie stepped out of the car. The dampness clung to his wool coat, and the smell of salt and old timber filled his lungs. "Rex, stay sharp," Charlie murmured. The dog hopped out, his nose immediately hitting the pavement. Rex didn't need a command to know they were looking for a scent of fear. Sarah Trong was already there. She was hunched over a patch of wet asphalt, her black hair pulled back into a practical ponytail, though a few stray strands had escaped to frame her face. She looked up as Charlie approached, and for a fleeting second, the professional mask she wore slipped, revealing a flicker of warmth that always made Charlie's pulse quicken. "Detective," she said, her voice a steady anchor in the morning chill. "We have a briefcase, a single shoe size 7, designer, and signs of a struggle. No witnesses. At least, no human ones." "Megan Schaefer," Charlie said, looking at the ID recovered from the bag. "High-profile lawyer. She was supposed to be at a deposition an hour ago." Sarah pointed to a collection of colorful pencils scattered nearby. "And these, they don't belong to a corporate lawyer. Emma Jansen reported her son missing just 2 blocks from here," Charlie recalled, his brow furrowed. "Brian. He's 12, autistic and nonverbal. His mother says he never leaves home without his sketchbook." The realization hit them both at once. 2 disappearances, 1 location. The fog had witnessed a tragedy, and it wasn't giving up its secrets easily. Chapter 2. Art and Agony. Charlie and Rex found Brian Jansen 3 hours later, huddled in the rusted hull of an abandoned fishing boat near the docks. The boy was shivering, his eyes wide and vacant, staring at a world no one else could see. "Take it easy, partner," Charlie whispered to Rex. Rex approached with a sensitivity that never failed to amaze Charlie. The dog didn't bark. He didn't even sniff aggressively. He simply lowered his body, crawling forward until his head rested on Brian's knee. A bridge was formed, a silent understanding between 2 beings who didn't rely on words. Back at the station, Brian sat in a quiet room with Sarah. Charlie watched through the glass, his heart heavy. Sarah was speaking softly, her hands moving in gentle gestures as she handed Brian a fresh sheet of paper and a pencil. "He's not just drawing, Charlie," Sarah said later, stepping into the hallway. Her eyes were bright with unshed tears. "He's recording. Every line, every shadow. It's like his mind is a high-definition camera." Brian's drawing was haunting. It wasn't a monster or a ghost. It was a man with a scar running through his eyebrow and a cold, calculating gaze. "That's not Jamie," Charlie said, referring to Megan's ex-boyfriend. "That's Todd, the senior partner at her firm. The one who, graciously, offered a reward for her return." The betrayal was a jagged pill to swallow. Todd had been using Megan to cover up a multi-million-dollar embezzlement scheme involving escrow accounts. When she found out, he didn't just want her gone. He wanted to profit from her disappearance. Chapter 3. The Ransom of the Soul. The investigation into Todd led them to an abandoned machine shop in the industrial district. The air inside smelled of grease and old metal. Rex was pulling hard on the lead, his whine a high-pitched frequency of urgency. "Police! Drop the weapon!" Charlie shouted as they burst through the door. Todd stood over a bound and gagged Megan, a heavy wrench in his hand. Rex didn't wait. With a powerful leap, he knocked Todd to the ground, pinning him before the man could react. Charlie moved in, his movements a blur of practiced efficiency as he cuffed the lawyer. As the paramedics tended to Megan, Sarah arrived with Emma and Brian. The reunion between mother and son was a silent explosion of emotion. Brian didn't cry. but he gripped his mother's hand with a strength that spoke volumes. Sarah stood beside Charlie, her shoulder brushing his. "You did it, Charlie. We did it," he corrected her. He looked down at his hands, still buzzing from the adrenaline. "But Brian, he's the real hero. He saw what we couldn't." Sarah reached out, her fingers grazing the back of his hand. "And you saw him. Don't forget that." The moment was brief, a spark in the dark, but it was enough to light the way for what was to come. Part 2. Death on the Best Kind. Chapter 4. Gold and Greed. The summer heat had finally arrived, bringing a shimmering haze to the harbor. The Best Kind, a 90-foot luxury yacht, sat motionless at the pier, its white hull blinding in the sun. But inside, the air was cold, with the scent of death. Jacob Kaufman lay on the floor of the main salon, a spear protruding from his chest. "A professional kill," Sarah said, her voice echoing in the sterile, opulent cabin. She was wearing a lab coat that seemed too clinical for the setting. The spear went through the heart. Instant death. But look at the spear tip, Charlie. It's encrusted with salt and ocean bacteria. The killer didn't walk on board, Charlie mused, looking at the security footage. They swam. A diver, someone who knew Kaufman's schedule, his habits, and his secrets. Kaufman was a man built on digital air. His wealth was tied up in cryptocurrency, a fortune accessible only by a 64-digit key. "The key is gone," Sarah noted, checking his laptop. "But look at his wrist. There's a tan line." He always wore a watch. The 1966 diving watch, Charlie recalled. His wife said he never took it off. It wasn't just a timepiece. It was a safe. Chapter 5. The Partner's Gambit. The list of suspects was a rogues gallery of the elite. Veronica Goodwin, Kaufman's tech-savvy partner, was at the top. She was a woman who moved like a predator, her eyes always calculating the ROI of every conversation. Jacob was a dinosaur, Veronica told Charlie, sipping an espresso in the hotel lounge. He understood money, but he didn't understand the future. I gave him the expertise. He gave me the headaches. But as Sarah dug deeper into the forensics, the truth began to surface. It wasn't just about the money. It was about the watch itself. "The watch is a reproduction," Sarah explained, showing Charlie a microscopic scan. "But inside the casing, engraved in the metal, is the crypto key. It's brilliant." He carried his fortune on his wrist, disguised as a sentimental trinket. The chase led them back to the yacht. Rex had picked up a scent not of the killer, but of the watch. It had been hidden in a compartment near the engine room, a place only a crew member would know. Chapter 6. High tide at midnight. The confrontation happened under a moonless sky. Blaine, the deckhand, was trying to flee with the watch when Veronica appeared, a silenced pistol in her hand. "I spent 5 years building that empire, Blaine," she hissed. "You're just a thief." "I'm an architect." Charlie and Rex moved with the silence of ghosts. Rex launched first, a blur of fur and teeth that disarmed Veronica before she could fire. Charlie followed, tackling Blaine as the watch skidded across the deck. As the sun began to rise, painting the Atlantic in bruised purples and pinks, Sarah stood on the pier, watching the evidence bags being loaded into the van. "Another one for the books," she said, leaning against the SUV. Charlie stood beside her, his hand resting on Rex's head. "It's never just about the crime, is it? It's the things people do to the ones they're supposed to trust." Sarah looked at him, her expression unreadable. "Trust is a fragile thing, Charlie." "I trust you, Sarah," he said, the words coming out before he could stop them. She smiled, a soft, genuine thing that reached her eyes. "I know, and I trust you." Part 3. The Spirit of Betrayal. Chapter 7. The Master Distiller. The Devereux Distillery was a cathedral of copper and oak. The smell of fermenting grain and juniper was intoxicating, a sensory overload that usually meant celebration. But today, it meant mourning. Willem Devereux, the man who had built a gin empire from a bathtub and a dream, was floating in Vat 4, drowned. Sarah said, her voice grim as she stood on the catwalk. But he didn't